Hearing and Audition by Abhiroop and Raj.
For audition and hearing, the main organ is the ear. So timbre talks about the complexity of sound, and that essentially means that the quality that you can hear the sound, and that's received by the basilar membrane, as we'll talk about later in the video. But the first thing is, you might be wondering, how do you actually end up hearing? Like, what's the process that occurs? Well, the word for that is transduction, and it's the conversion of one form of energy to another. In the case of the ear, it's sound waves to neurological impulses of the brain. Again, that occurs in the basilar membrane, as we'll talk about later. As you can see, some main things that occur in the ear that affect how we hear and how we perceive it depends on how the waves actually are, like the frequency of the waves, which is the rate at which the waves end up coming into your ear. And as this chart kind of shows, the more amplitude there is, or the higher the vertical volume of the wave, that there's more intensity and loudness, and that affects how we perceive it depending on what wave it is on that spectrum. So talking further about this graph, as you can tell up here, the height of the graph, or the delta E, is the amplitude, intensity, and loudness. And just to define those things, the intensity is the threshold of actual hearing, so it depends on the actual vertical length of the wave, along with the frequency, but more of the vertical. The smaller the intensity, the smaller the wave height. So that means the smaller the vertical height of the wave, the less chance you have of hearing it. And an example of this would be like electronic devices that send out sound waves, like the one that we were talking about in class, where certain adults can hear it at certain ages. So that has to, again, do with the wave height or the intensity. So the amplitude is the more mathematical term for that, which again is the same thing, the height of the wave from the median line. And how we perceive it is the loudness. The higher the wave is, the higher the vertical height the wave has, the louder the wave is.
Okay, now to talk about the ear. The external portion of the ear is called the outer ear. The pinna, also known as the auricle or auricula, is the visible part of the ear that resides outside the head. Other dimensional cues are the curvature on the outer ear that directs sound into the ear canal. The ear canal is a funnel that directs sound into the middle ear. The eardrum is a membrane of the middle ear that vibrates in response to the sound waves. This is also known as the tympanic nerve membrane. The middle ear is a place in the ear that is air-filled central cavity of the ear. This is behind the eardrum. The hammer, also known as a malleus, is a small bone in the middle ear that transmits vibrations of the eardrum to the incus. The anvil, also known as the incus, is a small anvil-shaped bone in the middle ear that transmits vibrations between the malleus and stapes. The stirrup, or also known as the stapes, is a small bone in the middle ear of humans and other mammals, which is involved in the conduction of sound vibrations to the middle ear. The inner ear is the semicircular canal and cochlea, which form the organs of balance and hearing and are embedded in the temporal bone. The oval window is a small natural hole in a bone. The middle ear is linked by the oval window to the vestibule of the inner ear. The cochlea is the spinal cavity of the inner ear containing the organ of Corti, which produces nerve impulses in response to sound vibrations. This is where transduction occurs.
And here's a picture of the ear. And just to recap whatever you learned or might have not learned, the main organ in audition or hearing is the ear. The sound waves in the environment transduct into electrical impulses and that occurs specifically in the basilar membrane of the ear. The outer ear is made to point sound waves into the ear canal. To continue, the outer ear is made to point sound waves into the ear canal. And as you can see from this picture, the curvatures on the outside of the ear are curved so that the sound waves kind of funnel into the actual ear canal itself, and then the actual perception can occur inside the ear through the different functions. The loudness comes from the amplitude or vertical height of a sound wave, and then there's a frequency theory where the cochlea of the ear receives sound waves, and the speed of the waves at the place where it hits the cochlea affects the reception of the pitch comprehended.